across something that just feels a bit paradoxical. Like this plant, Soul's parsley.
Yeah.
The name sounds, I don't know, harmless, a bit silly maybe. But then you dig a little and find out historically, it's actually tied to some pretty serious effects.
Yeah, it definitely makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It really does. So today, for this deep dive, we thought we'd try and, unpack that a bit. We're looking into some old records about this plant, Aethusa Cynapium.
Exactly. We've got these excerpts here from William Boericke's Homeopathic Materia Medica. It's, you could think of it like a really detailed logbook almost.
Like a journal from back then.
Kind of, yeah. Just meticulously recording observations about what happened when the substance was used. And just to be clear, our aim here isn't to validate these findings by today's science or anything.
No, not at all.
It's more about understanding the patterns and the really notable symptoms that people back then linked to fool's parsley according to this specific text.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So jumping in, what immediately hit me looking through this was this recurring theme Boericke seems to stress right away.
Which is?
This really strong connection between brain and nervous system stuff and then gastrointestinal problems, gut issues.
Ah, yes. That brain-gut axis before we even called it that, huh?
Exactly. It feels like they're constantly interacting in these descriptions.
That's a really good way to put it. And what's really interesting, too, is how often these notes seem to come from observing children.
Right. It mentions things like teething, or that old term summer complaint.
Which was often digestive upset in hot weather, yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing that really stands out, is this marked inability to digest milk.
Yeah, you can't miss that. It's not just like a little bit of upset stomach after milk.
No, it sounds much more significant. Almost a complete intolerance.
And it wasn't just mild discomfort either, was it?
Yeah.
The text uses pretty strong words, like emphasizing the violence of the onset.
Absolutely. It gives you this picture of things kicking off really suddenly and intensely.
Yeah, escalating fast.
Precisely. And that intensity seems to spill over into the mental and emotional states described too. You see everything from, general restlessness and anxiety.
Lots of crying mentioned. Irritability.
Right. But then it gets even more, dramatic. Boericke mentions potential hallucinations, people apparently seeing things like rats, cats, dogs.
Whoa.
And shifts in consciousness too.
Yeah.
Delirium, even unconsciousness. Plus this significant inability to think or focus, like a real brain fog.
That cognitive impact sounds pretty profound. Makes you think, especially if this was often seen in kids.
It's quite a spectrum, isn't it? From what might seem like simple fussiness all the way to these deep neurological issues.
And there's that weird contrast to mention too. This state almost the term they used was idiocy, potentially alternating with being really agitated and irritable.
Yeah, that juxtaposition is striking. It suggests a really deep, maybe unpredictable effect on mental function as they observed it.
So it wasn't just in the mind then. What about actual head symptoms?
Oh, yeah, plenty of those. And they seem to tie back into this neurological picture. For instance, this feeling of the head being bound up, or like it's in a vice.
Oof, sounds awful.
Doesn't it? Or pain specifically in the back of the head, the occiput, that could apparently go down the spine. And interestingly, it was noted to feel better when lying down with pressure applied.
Okay, that's specific.
Yeah.
But the really odd one for me was the head symptoms getting better after passing gas or having a bowel movement.
Yes, that is a peculiar one, a very direct gut-head connection noted there. And you notice Boericke links that to another remedy, sanguine.
Yeah, I saw that comparison.
He does that often. It helps differentiate the symptom picture. Then you have these other sort of stranger sensations, like feeling as if your hair is being pulled.
Weird.
Right? Or vertigo that comes with drowsiness and even heart palpitations. And then feeling like your head is really hot after the vertigo passes.
It's this whole constellation of symptoms together that's so detailed.
Exactly. And the detail continues with the senses. Eyes, ears, nose, they all get specific mentions.
Like photophobia, light sensitivity. And swollen meibomian glands. Those are the little oil glands in the eyelids, aren't they?
That's them. Also, the eyes rolling back when falling asleep, or this description of the eyes being drawn downwards, and dilated pupils, too.
Lots going on with the eyes. What about ears and nose?
Ears reportedly felt obstructed, kind of blocked up, maybe a sensation of heat inside and a hissing sound. Tinnitus, maybe?
Okay.
And the nose, again, very specific. Thick mucus, feeling blocked, but also this herpetic eruption, like a cold sore right on the tip.
Wow. A cold sore on the tip of the nose. That's precise.
It's that level of fine detail across all these systems that makes this Materia Medica such a fascinating historical document to read.
Definitely. Okay, moving down to the face and mouth. The descriptions are pretty vivid there too. Like a puffed up look.
Yeah, puffed, sometimes with red spots, but also maybe looking a bit collapsed is the word used, and this expression of anxiety and pain.
And they mentioned the linea nostrils being really marked. That's that line from the nose to the lip for listeners, another specific physical sign.
It is very specific. And inside the mouth and throat, dryness, these little ulcers called aphthai, that really bizarre feeling of the tongue being too long.
Too long. Okay, add that to the list of strange sensations.
And a burning feeling in the throat, maybe little pustules, making swallowing difficult. It all paints this picture of significant irritation and stress.
But the big one, the one that seems almost synonymous with fool's parsley in this text, is the milk thing, right? That intolerance of milk.
Absolutely. It comes up again and again. It seems totally central to the observations Boericke recorded.
How did it manifest? Just vomiting.
Often, yes. Vomiting either almost straight away after drinking milk or, very characteristically, vomiting up large undigested curds a bit later.
Curdled milk, right. Grim.
And interestingly, sometimes feeling hungry again after vomiting. There's also this note about regurgitating food about an hour after eating. Not just milk, but food too.
That delayed regurgitation an hour later. That's another one of those really specific timing details.
It is. And the vomiting itself isn't described as gentle, violent, frothy, white vomit. Also nausea just at the sight of food. A real aversion.
Ugh. So the whole digestive system just seems completely overwhelmed.
That's certainly the picture painted. And it goes beyond vomiting. Painful stomach contractions, vomiting that came with sweating and weakness, making the person really sleepy afterward.
Right, the exhaustion connection again.
Yeah. And even this really graphic sensation of the stomach feeling like it's turned upside down
Yeah.
with burning going up into the chest, plus tearing pains up the esophagus.
Sounds absolutely miserable, just intense gastrointestinal distress.
Through and through. And that carries on into the abdomen and stool descriptions too.
Okay, what did they note there?
A feeling of coldness in the belly, both inside and on the surface, along with aching. Colic often came before the vomiting, vertigo, and weakness hit.
So a warning sign maybe?
Perhaps. The abdomen itself could be tense, bloated, sensitive to touch, and this bubbling feeling noted around the navel.
The bubbling, okay? And the stools themselves.
Described as undigested, thin, greenish, often following colic and straining efforts, and again leading to profound exhaustion and sleepiness afterward.
That exhaustion pattern is really consistent, isn't it? After vomiting, after stool.
Very much so. And Boericke explicitly links this whole picture to cholera infantum, which was a severe diarrheal illness in infants back then.
Oh, wow.
He even describes the affected child cold, clammy looking, kind of dull or stunned, stupid looking was the term used, with staring eyes, dilated pupils, a really stark image.
It's chilling. It wasn't just for infants though, right?
No, he also mentions its use for really stubborn constipation where it felt like the bowels just weren't working anymore, and even for similar sort of cholera-like conditions in the elderly.
So a wide range of applications, but centered on this severe GI and neurological picture. It's striking, though, how far beyond those two systems the observations go. You see urinary symptoms, female-specific issues, breathing problems.
That's right. The text is comprehensive. Cutting pains in the bladder, frequent urges, kidney pain,
And for women.
lancinating pains, those sharp shooting ones, itchy pimples, watery periods, swollen, painful mammary glands, also with lancinating pains,
Respiratory.
difficult, oppressed breathing, even unable to speak sometimes because it was so hard to breathe.
And the heart gets mentioned, too.
Yep. Violent palpitations, often linked back to that vertigo, headache, and restlessness we mentioned earlier. And a pulse described as rapid, hard, but small.
And then the limbs and back. More weakness.
Profound weakness, yeah. Inability to stand up or even hold the head up properly, especially in children. That vice-like feeling could also be in the back. Aching lower back, weak legs.
Clenched fingers and thumbs.
Yeah.
Numbness. It really affects the whole neuromuscular system.
It seems to, based on these records. And finally, the skin wasn't spared either.
What did they see there?
Things like chafing or soreness, especially on the thighs. Sweat that came easily but was clammy. And that really weird detail about the skin surface feeling cold and sweaty, but the person needing to be covered up during the sweat.
That is odd. Cold sweat, but needing covers.
Also, swollen lymph glands, itchy rashes around joints, dry, shrunken-looking hands. even bruising easily, ecchymosis, and generalized swelling anasarca.
It's just an exhaustive list of physical signs they were tracking.
It really is. And the fever pattern is another distinguishing feature.
What was that like?
Great heat, apparently, but without thirst. That lack of thirst with high heat is noted as important. And then profuse cold sweat.
Cold sweat again, tying into that skin observation.
Exactly. And that need to be covered during the sweat phase is repeated here too.
Sleep must have been difficult with all this going on.
You'd think so. The text mentions disturbed sleep, being woken by violent startles, cold sweat stirring sleep, and that tendency to just doze off after vomiting or a bowel movement.
That exhaustion leading straight to sleep again. Especially in kids, you said.
Yes, for children, it specifically notes they'd just fall asleep almost immediately afterwards, utterly drained.
Now, Boericke also tracked things that made symptoms better or worse, right? The modalities.
Yes, those are always key in these old homeopathic records. For Aethusa, symptoms were reportedly worse very early in the morning, like 3 or 4 a.m.
Okay.
Also worse in the evenings, from warmth generally and specifically during the summer months.
Which ties back to that summer complaint idea.
It does seem to link up. And things that made symptoms better.
What offered relief?
Being in the open air, apparently. And interestingly, being in company.
Company, that's unexpected. A social aspect.
A little bit, yeah. Seems less isolating, maybe. Hard to say for sure what the thinking was.
And before we wrap up, he compares Aethusa to other substances, doesn't he?
He does. He mentions Athomantha, pointing out its different taste and icy cold limbs as distinguishing features. Others listed for comparison are antimon, calc, ars, cicuta.
Familiar names in homeopathic texts.
Right. And he specifically notes calcarea, calc, as being potentially complementary, suggesting a relationship in their observed effects.
So these comparisons help them sort of pinpoint the unique Aethusa picture.
That seems to be the goal, yes, to get that very specific symptom profile clear.
Okay. So if we try and pull this all together, what are the big takeaways from digging into Boericke's notes on fool's parsley?
Well, I think number one has to be that really stark combination of severe digestive upset, especially that profound milk intolerance happening alongside a whole host of neurological symptoms.
Yeah, that brain-gut link is impossible to ignore here.
Absolutely. Then there are all those very specific, sometimes quite odd modalities, the times of day, the temperature, open air, company.
And just the sheer breadth of physical symptoms recorded across nearly every body system. It's incredibly detailed observation.
It really is. And considering these complex patterns, symptoms weaving through digestion, the nervous system, the skin, sleep, it does leave you with a question, doesn't it? For you, listening, even looking at this through our modern lens, what might these incredibly detailed, if historical, observations suggest about just how interconnected our body systems truly are?
That's a great point. It definitely makes you think about those connections, maybe in ways we don't always consider today. Lots to mull over from these old records.